Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast. Because you've talked about Richard Dickerson a lot over the years.
I've always heard about him. I mean, in matter of fact, in the recording or in the interview, I tell him the story about the first lion I was ever in on that we caught was with one of his dogs. A friend of mine, Greg Ball, had traded. Greg Ball's cowboy and rides a lot. He used to ride a lot of horses, and he was a friend of mine. We roped around each other and everything, and he had a dog. He hunted lions, and he had a dog that he had got from Rick Dickerson. And we talked about it, this and that. And of course, I was always fascinated with hounds and hunting lions and everything. And a rancher friend of ours called him and said, "Hey, we got a lion track up here, and fresh one, and you want to come up here and run him?" And Greg called me, and I said, "Yeah, you bet." And we went up there, and man, it was like I told Rick, I said, that was the funnest thing I ever did. We went up there on top, and I stayed with that dog, and Greg went down to get his tracking box, and man, I stayed with that dog and watched that dog trail that lion, and it ruined me. I thought, man, this is the funnest thing I've ever done in my life. And
that's where the bug bit you.
Oh, bad. Well, I had it before, but that just implanted it in me, just that dry ground watching that dog, and it wasn't that old of a track, but we cold trailed him, and
right.
Trailed him all down that ridge, got to see where that lion traveled and what he did and everything, and then we ended up catching him in a cave hole. And it was a tom.
It was history.
Yeah, well, it was a tom. It was on private property, and the rancher invited us up there, and I shot that lion. I climbed up, and that lion wasn't 6 foot from me, and I didn't even have a rifle or a pistol with me or anything, and Greg handed me this big old pistol, and I can't hit that wall right there with a pistol. And I'm hanging off a cedar tree, hanging off the side, looking in that cave hole, and that big tom sitting there hissing at me. And I shot him right through the nape of the neck. And last thing, the buddy that was Phil that was with us, he said, make sure if you don't hit him the first time, shoot him again, something like that. And that lion ran by me and rubbed me on the leg on his way out. Before I could even drop my hand or pull that hammer back again. But
yeah, the cave seems sketchy.
I hate caves anyway. I get claustrophobic. I wasn't in this one, but I sure didn't like it.
It's amazing what they can fit in too.
Oh, the next cave, we trailed him to another cave, and he got another little cave hole, and that thing was absolutely dangerous because you went in, you climbed in about 3 or 4 feet. And then there was just a narrow opening to a ledge up above you. And he was up on that ledge, and if you stuck your head up, if you know anything that went up there, he was going to swat at it.
Right.
So, hold on just a minute. I'm getting a phone call. I'll decline it. I don't know.
Oh, send him to your agent.
Yeah. Well, those guys are always trying to get me to go be on their shows and stuff like that,
Brett's booking agency.
And if you believe that.
He's got oceanfront property down there.
I got something I can sell you.
Oh, well, this is one you did in person, wasn't it?
Yeah. What happened I've got to know Steve Smith and, of course, John Klump and all those guys. And Steve had told me about Richard Dickerson, which I already knew about him, but he said, man, he's going to be up here at this get-together. And I'd like to set it up. I'd sure like for you to interview him. He said he's caught more lions with a flashlight than probably anybody in the world, because he was hunting down there for the government down there on the Rio Grande River down in Texas. I guess it was the Rio Grande. I on the river, they said, down in Texas. And so I got a hold of him, and he said, oh, yeah. And I talked to him once before, and he had agreed to an interview. And then Terrell Shelley called me, and I've always heard about this get-together that they have. And I'd never been to it. And, of course, I had never been invited to it before. And Terrell called me, and Terrell called and talked to me. I bet he talked to me for an hour, and he remembered me from roping. Terrell used to rope a lot, and then he was getting back into team roping when I was kind of getting out, and he talked to me about roping and horses and this and that, and then he said, I'm going to send you an invitation to this get-together we have. So I got to go, and it's an amazing deal, really. I mean, you're sitting there in the company of some of the best houndsmen, dry ground lion hunters in the world. You know, Warner Glenn's there, Steve Smith is there, of course, Richard Dickerson's there, and then, you know, Jim Farmer and all these old guys and ranchers that you'd never even heard about that you know, have had a pack of hounds and had hunted lions down in that desert country or the, you know, in the dry ground. So it was something to just, man, I just sat around and listened to everybody. I really enjoyed it.
That's the best part.
Oh, yeah.
Listening, you know, getting guys together, especially like in your niche, that dry ground lion hunting. I mean, think about just the vast spaces you guys are hunting. It's not like you bump into each other like we do going down the road. You know,
no, I guess not. I don't know. I've never known any different. But there was always, you know, ever since the Bruce Kennedy DVDs, there was always this mystique about the dry ground guys. Mm-hmm. You know, that, you know, they're just larger than life to me anyway. And it was, you know, it was really a privilege for me to get to just sit in their company, you know.
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah,
that's awesome. Was that Richard, the only one you did?
That was the only one I did. I got Steve Smith's. I think he said that I can go interview him too.
Well, good.
I'm gonna have to corner him. Be like when me and him and when I did Jim Bueller, I took a big old bottle of whiskey up there and sat it down, and I said we're gonna have to have a drink, and we all took a shot, and I got him loosened up a little bit. Then when it was time to leave, I spent the night that night at Steve's, and I was going to leave, and he said, take that bottle of whiskey. I said, well, heck no, I don't drink that stuff.
He's a cool guy, man. And talk about, like, smart when it comes to scenting conditions.
Oh,
and,
scenting.
Like, he is an encyclopedia.
Dogs and scenting and just, you know, and have you ever been around him?
No, I've talked to him on the phone a bit, but I haven't met him in person. I
think he's like 12 foot tall.
Oh, yeah.
He's a big man.
That's funny. Oh, I know he's been really nice to us. He's just a jolly guy. Like, you know, to talk to him, he's a nice guy, and he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to, like you said, dogs, scenting conditions.
Oh, yeah. So I got plans to go see him, and he's agreed to it more or less, you know. And a lot of the guys, you know, it's something like I don't even know if he's ever even had a television set. So it's not something he's always told me. He said, you know, if it doesn't have hair on it, I'm really not that interested in it.
Right.
But I think he, you know, after I'd done John Clump and now Richard Dickerson, I think he'll sit down and talk to me.
Well, that'd be awesome. But until then, everybody gets Richard Dickerson, which has been a long time in the making, too. Like this event you said you went to, that wasn't the Houndsman rendezvous. Like, this is a separate deal that you got invited to with those guys.
Exactly. And I'd heard about it in you know, years past. Sewell Goodwin is the one I think that started it, I think. Mm-hmm. And might have been someone else, but I know Sewell hosted it for years, and then when Sewell passed away, Terrell took it up, and all those guys get together and they feed us. The food's unbelievable, and really, really good time.
That's awesome. Well, I hope everybody enjoys. Anything else they need to know before?
Just that, you know, Richard's a character. He's he's a musician. He plays in bands, and he's a roper. He's a good roper, and I think he's one of these guys that anything he set his mind to, he was pretty successful at, and of course he's, you know, let's put it this way: there's not many people in the world that's caught as many lions as he has, if there is anybody else, because that's what he's done for a living since he's a kid, really. I mean, he went to work in Arizona as a predator control, and then he went to Texas, and he's been real successful at it.
And how old is he now?
He's 68 years old.
And still hunting?
No, I don't know if he's hunting anymore or not. He's kind of got an office job now, I think. But I think it might have been something that he just finally doesn't,
Well, you log enough miles. You get to call it quits whenever you want.
Yeah, he had done it for years and years, and always had good dogs and just a good hunter,
We're ready.
Is it doing anything?
Yeah, it's got it.
Oh, and I'm sitting here talking about roping.
That's all right. It's not live. We're just.
Oh, okay.
I'll edit that part out unless it's unless it's a good story. Then I'll leave it in there. Okay. We might have some ropers watch this thing. Don't know.
Well, you look at
testing. Yeah.
Check.
Where are we at? We're here in the Gila, up here by Terrell Shelley's.
Yes, we're in a little sycamore grove here at the 916 Ranch.
Yep.
It's Terrell Shelley's place.
With Richard Dickerson. Before we get started, I got to tell you this story. I was hunting with Greg Ball. I had a dog I got from Riley Miller. He was a young dog. And Greg had that dog that he got from you called Maze. And we had a phone call on a line track. And Greg called me and said, "You want to go with me?" And I said, "Sure." So we went up there, and those dogs started trailing up. We got up on top of the ridge. And Greg had, back before they had the Garmin, we just had the beep beep collar. So he went down to get his tracking.
Yes, sir.
And I got up on top and I stayed with that dog across down that ridge, watching that dog work that line track. And it absolutely ruined me. I mean, just watching that dog and she'd even lick the rocks, just like you read about in the books.
Yeah.
And,
she was a nice little hound.
Oh, when we trailed that line, we ended up catching that line in a cave hole down on the edge. But, me staying with her and watching her work that lane, it wasn't an old track, but it taught me a lot because it still wasn't a 90 mile an hour. Here we go. It was tough conditions,
I traded her to Greg for a roping horse, a head horse.
Did you really?
A little bitty bay, little bitty thing. They called him Rock. And he was a nice little horse. Anyway, and I liked him. And Greg said, "Well, I'll trade you straight across." And I was like, "All right."
And she was a nice hound. And I just remember, I still remember to this day sitting there thinking, this is the funnest thing I've ever done in my life, is getting to watch where that lion walk through those rocks and walk back and staying with that dog. And it wasn't like the bears that we'd run, where it was just 90 miles an hour. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. So that's where I heard about you.
Yeah.
Because Greg knew you real well.
Yeah, Greg and I have been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the real deal. He's a good hand. Now. Yeah, he was a real good athlete, and when he was in college, and he wrestled, and I think he played some baseball. And
yeah.
But he and rope. I mean, he was a really good hand with a rope and
good hand
really
with a horse.
Good horse trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg's he's just 24 karat kind of guy.
Yep. Yep.
Our kind of guy. Nothing.
Oh yeah.
You can't have no trouble out of him.
But after that. I mean, and then I've always heard about, how did you get started? I guess we need to start. How'd you get started with the hounds?
Well, I was born and raised in Maricopa County, Arizona.
Okay.
And I tell people that, which is Phoenix and Tempe and all that. Here comes that sun. And, you want me to move a little bit? You gotta tip this way.
Nice, isn't it?
Anyway, and so I say Maricopa County because that's what it says on my birth certificate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Tempe and Scottsdale and all that now. And I went to school there. I grew up in Phoenix. And so my parents had a place up in Tonto Basin, up next, next to the Cartwright Ranch up there, Alan Cartwright and them.
Okay.
And so when I was about 8 years old, and that place up there, it was on a live water creek that ran all the way down to Bartlett and Horseshoe Lake. And so when I was about 8 years old, my dad was friends with an old black man that lived down in Buckeye, Arizona. And so Daddy went down there and he bought this hound pup that was about 7 or 8 months from this guy that he knew down there. And me and Steve Smith got talking about, me and Smitty were talking one day, and that's the same guy that he was real famous. He hunted all up and down the Hacienda River there.
The black guy?
Yes. And everybody knew who he was. And he, the story goes that Johnny Klein was a real famous lion hunter over there, and he used to hunt on Allen. I mean, I'd seen him when I was little. I knew who he was because I would go down to the ranch, and I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, Johnny had an old hound that was real famous called Pig. And Pig, they called him Pig because he had a curlicue.
Oh, okay.
And he had a little cowlick in his shoulder. And I had several hounds through the years that had that.
That came back through that.
That came back through that.
I'll be damned.
I got a dog from Steve Smith, from Smitty, that, we called him Popeye. And Steve gave him to me when he was a yearling pup, but he had the curlicue in him. And, outstanding, just as good as a hound ever gets, Anyway, Daddy he got this old hound that we had. We called him Sam. And, Daddy said, hey, you can get down on that creek. He said, and it ran for 20 miles down there all the way to Bartlett and Horseshoe Lake down there. Daddy said, if you get off the creek there, and I was probably 8 years old. He said, if you get off that creek, I'll whip you. And you can take that hound. And he was trailing. I mean, he would trail, but there was big cottonwoods and sycamores and, most of the time I couldn't. Sometimes I had a .22 rifle and I'd shoot coons out, but he was just tree anything. And then Daddy ended up getting me a couple more pups from this guy, and they'd catch wild cattle. There was a lot of wild Hereford cattle, bulls, and you'd hear them up there fighting them bulls. And how I never got killed, was because I'd just waller right in the middle and catch them, and
drag them
I mean, yeah, you could see the dust for a mile, where they were up there fighting those wild bulls. And anyway, so that's kind of how I got started with the hounds. My dad kind of got me into it. And of course, I was like every other kid. I had full cry, and I would look, up there on our place there on the creek there. We stayed up there a lot. I mean, I went to school down there in Phoenix, but we were up on that creek all the time and stayed up there all summer. But I, like every other kid, and we just had kerosene lanterns. There wasn't, that's how we did everything. But I had the Full Cry magazine, and I would tell my dad, I could catch a lion, my dad's, well, you better just stay on the creek down there and just keep doing what you're doing. And I had this old Eveready flashlight, the 1-2 cell deal, and you're beating it against the tree all night long. And I don't know how many nights I slept out on a moss covered on the creek there, just, cause it's too dark to travel.
Yeah.
Couldn't. So I'd just spend the night there, out with the hounds. And, my dad knew where I was at,
Yeah.
But that flashlight wouldn't work, And I'd look in that Full Cry and I'd tell Daddy, I said, man, cause they had they're like the little carbide lights, you know what I mean? The little headlamps.
Yeah.
And, I just begged him for one of them things. He said, you got a light. I said, yeah, the dadgum thing, it don't work, but about 5% of the time, and how they are, they're real dim. You can't see nothing, but anyway, and then when I was, I don't know, I was in my early 20s, I wanted, I got some hounds again, and I had been playing music and doing the deal and kind of got away from it a little bit.
You were playing music back then also?
Yeah, I started playing in bars when I was a junior in high school.
Really?
Yeah, I had some friends that were, they were about 5 years older than me, and they were playing down. There was a place there in Phoenix, a real rough honky tonk there called Arnold's 2x4. And they called it that because the outside was laminated with 2x4s that had been cut off a construction site.
Yeah.
Anyway, these guys were playing there, and they said, hey, come down and sit in sometime. And of course, I didn't, I'd been playing guitar. I taught myself to play when I was like 8, and, but listen to the phonographs.
Yeah.
And, anyway, they said, hey, come down. And I said, oh, okay. And so I went down there, and I ended up playing most of the night with them and, going out back. And Arnold knew me. He knew my dad.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, I know this boy. He said, he can't be in here. He's in high school. And they said, well, he ain't going to be drinking or anything, Arnold. And Arnold's on one side was the bar where they had the dance floor, and on the other side was the pool room. They had, I don't know, like 9, 10, I don't remember what it was, 12 pool tables. It was pretty big over there.
Place.
But that was all, it was just pool over there,
Yeah.
and on the other side was the band side. Anyway, I ended up playing all night, and then the other night they were like, hey, well, you're in the band. I go, what? They said, yeah, we play this many nights.
That was your introduction to it.
That was my introduction to it, yeah. Yeah, you learn about drinking bottled Michelob and fighting pretty quick. So I went home and I said, well, hey, I got to ask my dad, I said, I asked my father, So I told my dad and he said, well, if you can get up and go to school, he said, we'll see how it goes. Cool. That's how
Did they pay you a little bit?
Oh yeah. No, it was a paying deal.
That's cool.
But I still didn't know. I mean, I didn't know it was an audition.
Yeah.
That's how stupid I was back in the day. And we were out back drinking Michelob beer, man. I thought I was super tough,
Oh, that was like us.
So anyway, I kind of got away from it a little bit, but, I picked up some hounds from a guy, I was in my early 20s and, was trying to hunt lion and bear like everybody else, trying to get going. And didn't really know that much, but I mean, I had some hound background. I mean, I knew how to handle hounds, from growing up, but.
When you changed over to hunting lions and bears, what difficulties did you have? I mean, was it the dog power or your knowledge?
I just had a bunch of green young dogs that didn't know anything and I didn't know anything. So that compounds, that's a bad deal squared, so there's some math there. So anyway, but we were catching a few things.
Did you?
And then, I ended up, I don't remember how I met, and I'd been palling around with some local guys there, but, the blind leading the blinds,
Mm-hmm.
It's like low numbered roping guys,
Go and get instructions from a number 3.
8 number 4s roping together can't teach each other anything, but they think they know and they try to help one another. It's just so comical, No disrespect to them, but.
It's like, I tell you that story about the guy told him, you know what, you need whatever it was, you need to do this or you need to do that, to make yourself better. And the guy said, all right, worked on it for like a year. Come back and finally met that guy again. He said, I kept trying to do what you told me to do and it didn't work. And the guy looked at him and said, I thought it would. And that, he didn't put any more thought into it than that. So, you got to be careful about the advice you take.
Yeah. My turning point, when I started getting a little bit better at team roping, there was a higher numbered guy that I knew and asked him one day and same thing. I said, hey man, I want to get better at this and I need to move on. And he said, well, get yourself a better set of wheels.
Yeah.
Better horse. And Jojo Lamont and I are knowing each other since he was a kid, and his mother was hauling him to them ropings and them Coors ropings when I was roping with. And Jojo told me, and Tyler Magnus and I are friends, Tyler told me the same thing. He said, 90% horse, 10% roping.
Yep.
People don't understand that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you get it because you roped on Carol told me you roped on a high. Well, you told me that yourself, that you roped at a high level.
And I'll tell you, we're not talking about hounds, but be patient with us, guys. Also, like you said, I got to go and start helping break in steers with guys who were really good ropers.
Yeah.
And, there I was, a low numbered roper. Yeah. And I got up there and I had a good horse and it was starting to click, but I didn't want to look like, it motivated me to get a lot better, to try harder, I guess, and it dang sure did,
Well, you are who you hang out with.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're hanging out with a bunch of crackheads, well, before long, you're probably a crackhead too,
So
So anyway, that's how we got started in the hounds and, and then I met George Goswick. He was one of the first guys that really was the real deal.
And kind of mentored you? Did he help?
Yeah, a little, that's how, one of the first guys that I went with that was really, so there's levels to this thing, like in everything in karate or roping or whatever you're doing in life, there's a level to it. Lion hunting.
Yep.
So, 1 being the worst, 5 being
sure
the top of it. Those guys, guys like Terrell Shelley and like Bill Workman and, Steve Smith, Larry Hendricks, Sewell Goodwin, Ollie Barney, Dale Lee, George Goswick. Those guys are fivers. Mm-hmm. That's the ceiling on it.
That's as hot.
Yeah. So when you get around them guys, and George was a 5, he was as good as, been doing his whole life.
Yeah.
But anyway, he kind of took me and kind of, that's where I actually got my first couple of good dogs was from him.
Goswick.
And that, and then you make the turning point. And, cause they always had good hounds.
When you talk about your first dogs, what were the difference? What do you, those good dogs, besides catching lions, could you identify what made them so much better than the other dogs?
Well, just the breeding, just, the first dogs that I had, they were just a bunch of green pups and didn't know anything about them. They're just a bunch of culls.
Yeah. Cost weight, just better.
Yeah, but when it's just like horsepower, there's horses and then there's horses.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You get a dog from George Goswick or Terrell Shelley or Steve Smith or, or Larry Hendricks or now you're moving on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's calibers to everything in life.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah. Trying to.
So George and those dogs they had a little age on them, but he just made me a good deal on them, and it really helped me because everything I know about lions, 95% of it is from watching hounds trail.
And how old are you now?
68.
And when did you start?
Hunting for money?
Just hunting lions.
At 22.
So and that's what you've done for a living.
Yeah, I've been a professional lion hunter almost my whole adult life.
You remember that first lion you caught by yourself?
Uh-huh.
Tell me that story.
There was a young female and we just trailed around there and, and just
popped her up.
Yeah. I didn't even know what I was doing, and trailed her around there for a couple hours and they jumped her and treated her and, it's surreal. Does that, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know.
I rode up there and I was looking, I'm like, and I could still see its tail even to this day. I'm just looking like it's a lion.
Yeah. Finally, there's one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, and I think everybody feels that way,
Yeah.
And then, and as you get going in your career and you're thinking, you hear guys talk about 100 lions and you're thinking, man, if I live 150 years, I'll never get there. It's not realistic.
Yeah.
When you think about that, then you catch 100 and then you catch 200, 300 or whatever, as you move on.
And the things that
it's kind of cool.
I can imagine that the things you learn as you're doing that, things you can't even put into words.
Yeah.
You can't tell anybody. You can't just take somebody and say this,
Well, I've been a government lion hunter, most of my adult life. So, that's what I've been doing for a living. On average, I hunted, 340 days a year.
Wow.
So people have no idea. I know guys want to hunt lions, but it's fun. And there, once again, there's levels to it. But when you're hunting 340 days a year, the romance goes out of it.
It's a job then.
Yeah, it's a job then. But people say, well, and we used to catch a lot of lions. We catch 40 lions a year.
Yeah.
But if you divide 40 into 340, that's a lot of dry days.
Yeah.
So that's, you gotta deal with that psychologically. And, there's a lot of things that come with the job. You just find out whether you want to do it or not.
Sure.
There's an old saying, that makes fun of lion hunters, 44 jacket and a number 2 hat. I think it's true.
There's gotta be.
You can't have a lot of IQ points to do it for a living, but I hunted up till about 5 years ago, and I've been retired from it for about 5 years.
Do you still crave going out and trailing one up?
Yeah, I still miss it.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you do it still?
No, I hadn't been. I have friends that are doing it, and I could do it. I could go with you or whoever.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm burned out. I just, I made a lot of pony tracks over the years.
Sure.
And we've had the big hunt. It'd be really small of me to complain and say, well, this or that, because, we've had the big career and been a real blessing.
Oh yeah.
That's what I always wanted to do. That's all
Yeah. How great is that to be able to make a living doing what you love to do? That's to me, that's the meaning of happiness really is so many people have to make a living doing things they hate to do,
Yes, sir.
And that's,
well, I got into the government deal real quick from a rancher friend of mine down there in Patagonia, Arizona. His Rover Cane, and his, Grover was a friend of mine, and they were ranchers down there, and he knew some people in the government circle, and that's how I got involved in that. You know, he put a word in for me, and I got started in Arizona, and then they ended up transferring me. I've spent most of my career in Texas. I've been in West Texas most of the time.
We don't have to include this if you don't want to.
Okay.
How did you end up having to leave from Arizona?
I got transferred.
You got transferred to Texas?
Yeah, it's like being in the military. They said, hey, you're going to West Texas. And I said, I don't know about Texas.
Yeah.
And now I'm saying y'all.
Y'all.
And I say, you doing all right?
Things change.
And the locals down there, even to this day, after I've been down there like, I don't know, 37 years, maybe 36 years, even the locals, I mean, I'm in, but they'll tell me, you're this close to being a real Texan.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And people even, like I said, to this day, people say, where are you from? They still know I'm not.
They can detect that.
They can detect that Arizona thing, because that's where I was born. You know, I'm a native Arizona.
And Texans, even they say even when they leave Texas and they die, they go back to Texas.
Yeah. And I've worked on my y'all, but it's still, that Arizona thing still bleeds through, cowboy. It's just like, and it's aggravating, you know, because I think there it is, y'all.
Y'all.
And they go, where are you from originally? If this is y'all.
So over the years, I mean, what dogs stand out in your mind that you had that like you think, man, I imagine you've had a bunch of them, but.
Yeah, it's, you know, once again, it'd be real small to complain, you know, because we've had a lot of good ones. You know, I mean, you catch a lot of lions, you're training a lot of dogs, and then, you know, the breeding. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I've had 2 strains of hounds most of my career.
Same bloodline?
Yeah, so there was 2 different bloodlines there, and I just kept kind of mixing them back and
they
forth.
go back to the Goswicks?
Yeah, that and Terrell Shelley, and then the other part of it was out of Steve Smith and Larry Hendricks' stuff.
Yeah.
And out of a dog that Steve had, I think he called her Brownie. You know, the old Brownie dog, but those dogs I think originally come from that pig dog. You know, I mean,
Bobby Day.
From down there, from that old man down there that was hunting on. And that might not be right. I might not be telling it right, but I think those dogs, that's where they came from. And they were they were a little bitty hound.
Yeah.
And you know, back in the day, I had some good dogs, and I'll get back to your question here in a second, but I had some really good dogs, and I was catching lions, and I had a guy call me, and I had met Larry Hendricks in '80. I was fleshing elk and deer hides for a taxidermist friend of mine down there.
Yeah.
And, you know, to make a little extra money. And Larry was bringing tagged lion skins in there and selling them, because they had a, you know, taxidermy shop there. And he was buying those lion hides for whatever it was. We still good?
Yeah. We're good.
So anyway, old Lorenzo, he comes in there, and we kind of hit it off and got talking, you know, and he came in a few times, and he said he was going to take me with him one, you know, time or two. But you know, I never did get to go with him. And this guy called me one time, and he says, hey, I see a lion down here. It was over around Prescott. So I called Larry, and I said, hey, there's a guy down there says he sees a lion. He said, I'm going to go over there. You want to go? And he said, yeah, I'll go with you. So long story short, we trail this thing. I mean, a long ways. And Larry's dogs are, they're in front of my dogs. You know, not a stupid amount of distance, but enough where you notice it.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the deal. They were just out trailing these hounds that I had.
Yeah.
And they're smaller, and they're sorry looking little things.
Yeah.
I mean, they're stupid color. I mean, you're like, you don't even, you know, what color's that dog? You know, he's some kind of motley looking thing, and a little bitty squeaking thing. Yeah. You know, and just ridiculous, you know, and they weigh 25 pounds, you know, and I'm thinking, I got to get me some 25ers. You know,
didn't trade in for his.
Yeah. I didn't trade the other stuff in. I mean, I was like,
what do they say?
I got to incorporate some of these 25ers into my stuff.
Where they say fit more in a dog box and eat less dog food.
So through Larry and Steve, you know, they helped me kind of, you know, get that extra deal. I don't think I would have had the big career, and we've caught a lot of lions.
Because you got good dogs.
That's not about me. That's about that dog power.
You got access to good dogs.
Yeah. When you got that dog power, it makes a difference.
And were those dogs really smart? I mean, did they?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I got that Jazz dog that was a Larry Hendricks dog.
Smart.
This is how smart she was. I would, I get back from somewhere. Of course, I tell them to load up, and they load up and everything. I get back from somewhere, and I tell them, go get in, get in their pins. Get in, go get in. And her pin, now she wouldn't unlatch it to get out, but her pin was latched. She'd go flip the latch up with her nose and get in her pin. I got a video of it on my YouTube channel of her doing that. It was amazing. And like you said, little squeaky mouth, short ear.
They were the sorriest little things, I make fun of them. I call them 25ers, because and some of them weighed a little more of that, but not much, to be honest. And tough. I mean, they had a lot of bottom end, all the heart in the world.
Yeah.
They were just, and go to the game.
Yeah.
But here's the deal with them dogs is they never know their names. You can't break one to save your life. I mean, dog be 13 years old still running an elk, but she's caught 40 lions that year. You're like, man, look at that bull. That's a nice bull. You don't hold it against him. You're like, man, that bull scored 400. She's 13 years old. They're never broke. You know what I mean? It's just
people tease.
So you got to deal with that. It's
people tease me because I have those. I raised 1 litter of pups out of her. And I kept every pup. There was only 4. 1 died, and I got 3, and I call them the terrorists.
Right.
I said, you go to the woods with them, you never know what you're going to get. But they will catch something.
Yeah, they what I call going to the game. I mean,
Yeah.
So it's all about dog power.
Yeah.
It's all about horsepower, mule power. That's the measure of success.
Yeah.
In anything in life, you got to have good quality
good
stuff.
Tools, yeah.
You got to have the tools to do it. So it's but back to the good dogs. I mean, there's half a dozen that probably stand out, that I've raised, or, Cisco, Flojo, the Popeye dog that Steve gave me as a yearling. He was, those dogs were all 5 dogs, but there was a bunch of them, Scratch and Polly. I mean,
over the years.
Yeah, I can name, we've had, most guys never have one good hound in their career.
Yeah.
In all honesty, no disrespect, but if they have one, they've done good. And, we've had more than our share.
More than one.
But a level 5 hound is as good as a hound gets. And that's, when they're 5ers, they're 5ers, but we've had some 3s. I've had 3 or 4s that I've kept and hunted and, and they do good.
Yeah.
Cause they all got everything in life's got a niche,
Sure.
And, but those dogs are, they're just neat little old hounds. And
did you ever mess around with the running walkers that they have down there?
Not that I know of. Terrell's dogs, I like Terrell's dogs because they're easy to train.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can break those dogs and they're level 5 dogs. I raised a bunch of them that I got from him as puppies, and they were the real deal, but they were not as stubborn as the Hendricks and the Smith dogs.
What do they go back to? They go back to the old Evans dogs?
They go back I think they go back to, and I might be off on this, but I think they go back to the old Lee stuff maybe.
Yep.
Or maybe the Ben Lilly stuff or something, Smitty would probably, Jay Stephen would be able to tell you more about that stuff. I don't, a lot of guys get into all the lineage, and I'm pretty limited. I mean, what I'm telling you here is I'm surprised that I've even retained this much. But
you've always kept what works, and that's what matters.
I know what works and what doesn't work, and that's the measure. That's the difference between being Ben Gump and and being successful.
You said you hunted with Henry McIntyre a little bit?
No, I never did hunt with
Henry.
We were just friends.
I heard that dog Newt, that he had the dog.
Yeah, he got that dog from Larry.
Yeah, Steve.
From Steve.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're right.
There's a story about that.
Doc. He bought a dog from Larry called Doc.
Okay.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
I knew something you didn't.
No,
I'm enjoying that.
Well, no, with the Newt dog, I've told this story a jillion times. It was really cool.
No, I knew Newt.
Yeah.
I knew Newt.
And I was telling somebody, I said, I guess we're all looking for a dog like Henry McIntyre's Newt dog. And I was telling Steve Smith that. And he said, well, I sold Henry that Newt dog. Yeah. Well, then I was telling that story later on. And I was talking to Rick, y'all were talking about him the other day. Rich,
Richard Holcomb?
Not Richard Holcomb. Dadgummit, I can't remember his name now. But anyway, I was talking to him and I was telling that story, and he said, well, I'm the one who gave that dog to Steve.
Golly.
How come I can't? It's our old age creeping in.
Well, we've been looking for our sunglasses all morning long. Don't try to lie until the podcast. I said, hey, your sunglasses are clipped on your shirt. No, it ain't going to get no better, I promise you. Yeah, but he got a dog from Larry called Doc that was, and I knew them dogs growing up. I mean, I knew them when they were puppies and watched them come on. And yeah, Henry and I were good friends, and Henry was the real deal. I mean, he was, I think he was involved with some stuff early on, for whatever the reason. But, the last 20 years that he was hunting, but we never did go together. But we were friends. We'd go to the chicken fights together and go to the horse races. Did I say that on there?
Yeah, that was back when they were legal.
Yeah, it was back. Don't edit that, but we would go. He would come by and pick me up. And we'd go to the horse races, and he was awful good to me. He'd come twice a month and try to buy a dog from me, and he was just hilarious. He'd come down and out, Ricardo, he said, I got a pocket full of money. I'm going to get one of these hounds today. And of course I just wasn't, when you're using them every day, you don't have anything for sale, but.
Everybody who's come in, you good lion hunters and everything talked about Henry that way. When he heard about a good dog somewhere, somebody had good dogs, he'd bring a roll of cash and go try to get them bought. I
can still hear him on the phone. He would call me like at least once a week. And he would call and I'd pick up the phone, and he said, this is Henry McIntyre from Valentine, Texas. He said, and I'm looking for the real deal. And I said, well, you found him, cowboy. He goes, have I? I'll tell you, he was like I said, we were good friends, and Henry was tough. I mean, Henry wasn't somebody you wanted to fool around with. I mean, he had kind of a bad reputation for being one thing or another, but Henry was, I know some stuff about Henry. Henry had a good heart. He would do anything for you.
If he liked you, yeah.
Yeah, but if you jacked with him. And I was raised by a bunch of tough men just like him. People say, well, you got along with him. I said, yeah, well, I was smart enough not to. Mm-hmm. I wasn't stupid enough to go up there and mess with him.
He'd do whatever it takes.
Yeah. Because, them kind of guys will thump you.
Yeah.
And it's not just Henry. There's a lot of, there's a lot of men around like that ain't going to put up with a bunch of this stuff that's going on in this world,
Oh, yeah.
They'll thump you right quick. So anyway, Henry, he was one of a kind.
Did you ever know the old Mexican man from Sanderson there that hunted lions?
And the Corazones? The Corazon?
I can't remember his name.
FM Galvan?
FM Galvan.
Yeah, I know. We call him Corazon.
Oh.
Corazones.
I sat down and interviewed him. One of the first guys I did. I stopped there in Sanderson and I asked at the gas station. I said, is there anyone down here in Hunts Lions? They said, well, yeah, FM Galvan. Yeah. And I went down, pulled in. He was dying of cancer at the time. He was sick.
Was he still smoking?
Yeah. Had a TV tray on his, in front of his couch there, and he's sitting there, skinny as a rail, had all this medicine on that couch, smoking a cigarette.
There was 4 or 5 of them brothers, and I was friends with all of them.
He was a neat man.
Yeah, his brother, Frank Galvan was my neighbor. Been my neighbor for 35 years there.
I didn't record him like we're doing.
Right.
I just, I took some pictures of his pictures and everything, and he trapped a lot of lions too. Right. But you could tell when he talked about the hounds, he just lit up. You could tell he really loved to run the hounds.
Yeah, I knew him a little bit down there, not as good as I knew some of his brothers.
Yeah.
Because they roped, and so we roped together. And his brother Frank was my neighbor, and we called him Peepaw. And I called him Pa because he was like a dad to me, And really good people.
Yeah.
And his nephew is still my neighbor, Danny Galvan. We're still neighbors, and we've roped together forever. And yeah, they're good kind of people.
Yeah. They had one picture album. I got to copy those pictures. I just took pictures of those pictures. And then they had another one that they loaned to somebody that was going to do a book or something, and they never got it back.
Yeah.
And but the lady after I just made a little video, just little music video with their pictures and talking about him a little bit.
Yeah.
And his daughter, I think she lived in Abilene or something. She called me and thanked me and everything. She was real nice.
No, they're nice. They're nice people. everybody down in West Texas is, for the most part. I mean, it's kind of changed over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
A lot of people have died off, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people moving in there, like every place else. But
Yeah.
there's still a lot of good people there.
I got a good friend of mine, Cody King. He's from way down there somewhere, but.
Oh, I don't know him, but I know the name. He's a bobcat guy.
Yeah, catch a lot of bobcats.
Yeah, I think. Where's he at, in Ensenada or Freer? Or?
I can't remember the name.
Yeah, he's right there. He's on the Nueces.
Yeah.
On the Rio Nueces.
And Ruben Lossman, I think, was the one kind of helped him.
I got you.
And Cody goes into Mexico and catches lions.
I got you.
And
yeah, any dog that can catch a bobcat, dang sure.
Yeah.
Any dog that can catch a house cat catch a lion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he's successful. He's a good guy too. I really enjoy him. We talk a lot. And
right.
I got some of his.
Well, line tracks though are like everything else. There's levels to it. So there's a sorry line track or a good line track or.
What? Have you ever been hurt or anything while you're out there hunting lions?
Never. After I've been hunting since '83. And I never. I've had a lot of close calls, but I've never been hurt. The only time I've been hurt horseback was team roping. I had a horse flip over in the box with me and broke my pelvis and kicked me getting off of me and broke some ribs. And yeah, they're heavy.
Yeah.
Horses are heavy.
Yeah, they are. That's not good.
But, on the mountain but once again, that comes from keeping good, there's too many good animals out there. Guys all want to fool with this, bunch of jackasses or, a bunch of culls or, they'll get you hurt.
And they don't know any different.
They don't know no different. But yeah, we were blessed all through the years. We always had good mules and had some really good rock horses. And,
Is that the way you hunted mostly? Was on a mule or a horse or?
Yeah, either one.
What do you prefer?
Probably, I like the way a mule travels better than I do a horse. A horse after a while, they kind of jar me and the mule's got a little smoother gait.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something about a mule, which may or may not be right, but a mule ain't going to hurt himself. Yeah. If a mule balks, the whole time I was hunting, if a mule balk going off some ledges or going through a bad place there, if they balk, I get off them.
Yep.
And a horse, hell, you can't stop a horse. They just...
And they'll kill you.
Yeah, they'll kill you going off there or going through some ledges or
when they go to fall down something, they'll kill themselves and you two trying to keep from doing it.
Well, we've had some good ones and never been on, never have fallen or gotten hurt. But
I was raised riding good horses and I'd never been around mules at all. And a rancher friend of mine over there, I was hunting on a real nice little 3-year-old gelding that I just started roping a little bit on. And he seen me, he said, "Oh, you're out here, hunting on that nice horse." And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You know what?" He said, "The way you hunt," he said, you ought to get a mule." And he said, "But get a good one." And I never will forget him pointing his finger at me.
Yeah, and they're like everything else, wet saddle blankets,
Yeah,
people used to ask me, "Hey, where do you get that good donkey?" And I said, "Well, we made them, we're using them every day, and that makes the difference."
Sure-footed and won't hurt themselves.
Yeah, and I've had some I used to have a big mare mule. She was like maybe 16 hands, maybe a skosh taller than that. Here's a big old thing. And you could shoe her on the fronts, but when you went around to shoe her on the back, she'd stomp her feet. Still good?
Yeah, I think so. Let me make sure. Yep.
Man, she'd walk around there. You'd move your box to the back to shoe her on the back, and boy, she'd pound them. And she took a number 2 shoe. And when she thumped that hoof on the ground, now she was like, So I never did. I just didn't fool with it.
Yeah.
I would shoe her on the front and just ride the dog out of her. But
yeah, I mean, mules, you didn't have to put shoes on at all?
Uh-huh.
What?
Yeah. Here's the deal I think with that is once you start shoeing them, you got to stay with it. But if you get a little old mule that's got little old bowling balls for feet and never been shod, if you don't start, they do pretty good. But they're like everything else. If you ride them enough, I mean, I hunted, like I said, 340 days on average. They'll get a little ouchy no matter what.
Yeah.
Whether they're shot or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always tell everybody got a day off but me. I'd come in and catch a fresh mule or horse and then, pick up another 6 or 7 hounds. We always kept like 30 hounds.
30 hounds. How many saddle animals did you have? I mean, mules and horses, did you have to rotate them?
Yeah, no, I kept about 4 usually on average.
Just rotate them?
Rotate them out, and everybody got a day off but me.
And you, like, how did that work with government? You got a call saying that there's a problem lying somewhere?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes we would get calls if there was killing, and we would go tend to it. And most of the hunting was just, historically there's just lion country.
Yeah.
And people, it's a management scheme. It's, that's what it is. I mean, if you've got 6 lions in there and you take 4 out, 2 is better than 6.
Yeah. And I mean, so that was done because the public that was buying lion tags weren't getting it done in that area?
Well, in Texas, the lions don't have any status, so they're just hunting them. But the ranchers, the ranchers request assistance if they've got, lion killing calves or goats or sheep, or, people are trying to make a living. Lion gets in there, it's just astronomical, the damage.
Yeah.
And you mark, say you got a nice little lamb crop, you mark 120%, and a lion, come shipping time, and I've seen it. I mean, you're down to 10. You can't make a living on that.
No.
I mean, it is what it is. So we go in there and, if there's killing, we tend to it. But there was just places where I had places that I would just hunt and go in there and just, stay after them in there, trying to help the deer. And, an adult lion can kill 50, 75 deer per lion a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's their main prey base is mule deer or whitetail.
Yeah.
And they can get anything they want,
Yeah.
So.
I know Bruce Kennedy, the big question back in those days was what they scratch with their front or their back. And I think we've proven there, it's been proven since then because of the cameras and everything. And
right.
It's their back feet. But I heard you guys talking about something last night that might be a little controversial.
I felt like I was pretty quiet. I'm
going to bring this up.
Okay.
Female scratching.
Yeah. They make a mark. But it's different. Is
it different?
Yeah, it's a different deal. But it's still a communication. It's a form of communication or territorial. Or,
what kind of scratch? Is it kind of more V-shaped?
It's more like a litter box, like they're in the litter box, scratching around there, just kind of cool. And they make another deal that I've seen that it's like a big cone. They'll pile it up, and it's a big, this huge cone there. I don't know, it looks like a D8 been in there digging.
I found one of those one afternoon up on top of the Animus. It was late in the day. And there was a little piece of like gut or hide there.
Right.
And I looked at that and I thought, this is a kill. And it's late in the day. I'm going to come back early in the morning because I thought she'd cover up her kill. And I came back the next morning. It was still the same. She hadn't been back or nothing had been back. And I thought, well, I'm at least going to see what she covered up. There was nothing in there. Nothing. It was just, and like you said, it was a pile that big.
Yeah. That's the female deal. You don't see a lot of that. You don't see a lot of, of those or, them marking around there, but most of their marking is glandular. I mean, it's an anal glands or they've got glands in their neck and they'll rub on that brush. You see those hounds, a good hound will trail if it's brushy. They'll smell that twig or going along the brush there. And, that's the lion rubbing against there or they're marking with the, their scent there's in the glands there and they'll spray that.
Yeah.
But most of the female is just from the, they're visiting those scrapes that the males make, and the males, they mark with their hind feet, and they urinate, and then they'll deposit that scat and urinate, and then they'll make the mark.
That's there.
And then the females come by, and it's a form of communication and a territorial deal. The males are marking. I mean, they're super jealous over their turf, and then they'll defend it to the death. I mean, I've trailed into a lot of lions. Either both of them are dead or one is dead, and then go on and trail the other one, and he ain't much better shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're tough. They're mean to one another.
How much harder is it to trail up and catch a female than a tom? Is it?
It depends on what's going on, the time of year or the soil conditions.
Conditions dictate everything.
Yeah, they're smaller. I mean, they're lighter. They leave less scent.
Do they travel a lot different?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the males are lazy. I mean, they'll just ease around. The females are a little tougher. The way they, a little tougher travelers.
Kind of like we are.
Yeah, they're just male. They're just male. They're just lazy, man. I mean, Yeah, the girls are. Yeah, they're And when you jump them, they're a little more spry, 150-pound Tom. I mean, they give it a good go, but, but a little old 80-pound female, they'll give you a good run.
Really?
And they're more wiry. I mean, they're more apt to get away from you than a 150-pound male.
Okay. Another controversial subject. How about turning off their scent?
Doing what?
The lions turning off their scent.
Oh, okay. Well, what I think on that is...
Yep.
No.
We want to hear it.
I'm reflecting. So here's what I think on that. I don't think they mean to do it. I think so. Lions and dogs, they have a pad, and there's glands in those pads, and there's nerve endings, and there's scent in those in the glands. The pads have scent. That's how they, when they put pressure on there, that's how that scent is transferred to the surface of the ground. Yep. Well, to me, what dictates that, it's environment. And lions are super sensitive. Like I said, there's nerve endings in there, and they're pretty careful where they put their feet, and they can detect heat, and cold, and so the lion is traveling around. There's maybe a heightened awareness, like he's been jumped, or there's another male, or he's worried about where he's putting his feet. I mean, there's a lot of contributing factors that dictate how much scent is going on the ground. Yeah. Some soil holds scent better than others, but I think with the scent, the transfer of the scent on the ground, there's a chemical response, and that is just a heightened awareness. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Of what's going on around them? Sure. Whether there's another lion, or they've gotten spooked, or they're scared. Yeah. Or they're watching where they're traveling, so I think that, to me, that dictates more how that scent is going on the ground.
How about right before they bed down somewhere? Does the scent get lighter or less, you think, or have you ever thought about that?
No, not really. I think, it just depends on what the soil conditions are there. I don't think they mean to do it, but like a jumped lion, I mean, I've had lions across the canyon from me, and they're jumped, and they're just trotting along there or walking along there, and the dogs are 50 yards behind them, can't hardly trail them. So that's that heightened awareness that I'm talking about. They don't mean to do it, but there's a chemical response there.
Instead of plopping down there.
Well, they're just, they're not as relaxed. So when they're just cruising, when a lion is just cruising along, that transfer of that scent is pretty good. Yeah. But once again, it depends on, what's going on with the soil. So different soils hold scent differently.
Good conditions.
That's why we call it a lose. Yeah. So you're jenning along there, and, things are going pretty good, and you're thinking, hey, we're going to catch this thing. And then you hit a little old place for 100 yards or eighth of a mile, or, if you get into some burnt country, or, where there's been a fire, so there's a lot of contributing factors that enable that, that scent to, how it goes on the ground, what degree it's going on the ground. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a lot of.
But to me, it's environmental.
It's the conditions they're in.
It's conditions and what's going on at that time.
That makes sense.
So a lion has jumped, and she's walking in front of the dogs. There's a heightened awareness. She's very alarmed, and that scent it gets cut off.
What about good condition? How old a track do you think a guy can trail in on these rim rocks and stuff? I mean, I think I got a little.
That's just 2, 3, 4 days. It depends on the time of the year, or, humidity. I mean, there's a lot of, dynamics that go along with, how that scent, where it's at. It's in the shade, like scrapes, I've had hounds go up there, and if the conditions are right, they can smell a T-Rex, but it has to be right there. Yeah. They're not going to trail off that, but I never really fooled around with much. I mean, I get the cold trailing thing, but my recommendation for guys that are trying to do it, or if you want to catch a lion, and I've caught lions off 2-day-old tracks. You mess around.
Just stayed after them?
Yeah, you just stay after them. Then all of a sudden you're on the short end of it, and you get lucky and catch up, so to speak.
And I imagine after you've trailed and caught as many lions as you do, you have a bad lose. You're good at looking at the country and knowing where that lion's heading to.
Yeah, and I've always been the king of that. You know, if I don't like the way things are going, I'll pick them dogs up and I'll start circling. You know, I'll try to freshen it up and what I call getting on the short end of it.
Yep.
So, and sometimes if it's going good, I mean, I won't mess with them. And I've caught a lot of lions that way.
Yeah.
You know, but you have to it just depends on the situation. You know?
How much do you think in dry ground, like you hunt, how much do you think you have to help the dogs day in and day out? I mean, when you were hunting, do you have to help quite a bit?
I have, yeah.
Because I've often heard that the good dry ground lion hunters, that the hunter is the best dog he's got.
Yeah. Here's what I think on that deal. In all honesty, I've helped them. I've picked them up and took them where I went over there and freshened it up and got on the short end of it, and you know, and went down and you know, for sure you got to go down there and look to see if you're on the right end of it. Mm-hmm. You can't catch them going backwards. Mm-hmm. I always tell a lot of young guys call and they're talking to me and they say, hey, you know, that thing just kept getting worse and worse. And I said, well, you're probably on the back end of it, you know, but you want to, you know, optimally you want to be on the short end of it. And,
is there any way besides it getting consistent or continuing to get worse and not being able to find a track? Was there any indicators that you used to tell if you're going backwards or? Just getting,
you know, and I learned this from Sewell Goodwin. Sewell taught me how to watch hounds trail.
Yeah.
And how lions travel. And you can kind of like if a lion is climbing. So, and I learned this from Sewell. So if a lion is climbing, they'll climb just like a horse. It's like a saddle horse going up. They'll switch back.
Take the steepness out.
So yeah. So, and this made sense when he told me, he said, when a lion's coming off the mountain, when they come off, they'll come straight. So there's more weight being distributed on their pads.
Oh, so it's easier to
so so you can tell if you're backwards, you know, just a little deal like that. That's just one example. But if a lion is coming off the mountain and those dogs just gin to the top of it, I mean, they hit that thing and just blow to the top of it,
so
you're more than likely backwards.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So little bitty things like that.
And I've heard you say that before. I think it was Greg told me that, or somebody told me that you told him.
Oh, okay.
And because I remember hearing that, you know,
yeah.
before. Because you know, everybody that dry ground lion hunts, I know we struggle with it all the time.
You know, I've caught more lions, in all honesty, just staying out of the way. I think a guy will catch more lions if he just. And don't ride up in the middle of them and stay on them. You know, give them a little breathing room. Stay back, and then you can still see them, but don't crowd them. And if a guy will just, I think you catch more lions if you know you're on the right end of it and it's a night old track, whether you're on the long end of it or the short end of it. You know, I've caught lions 30 minutes away from the pickup and then caught them at 12 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. But I think if a guy will stay out of the way, I think you'll catch more lions and that's a trust deal. You got to believe in what you got there on the ground. You got to believe in those dogs. You know, guys get anxious, and this lion hunting's a patience game. You can't just, you know, I mean, everybody wants to catch them, jump them, and catch them.
Yeah.
But I think they're missing the boat. To me, it's just being out all day. If me and you were out all day and we trailed a lion 8 hours, and whether we caught him or not it was really, to me, of no consequence. I mean, it's nice to jump them and catch them, but just watching those good dogs work and.
Oh, I know.
Does that make sense, though, staying out of the way? And trusting in what you got.
And
you'll catch more lions doing that, I think.
And that's something I had a hard time learning because you hear a bunch, you know, anymore you can hear anything with the internet, you know, and you get a lot of, like we were talking about before, get a lot of that bad advice. And then you always want to try to make things happen, especially when you're younger. You try to make things happen and
I've cost myself when I was younger. I've cost myself lions trying to help.
Yeah. Get in the way.
Oh yeah.
Think you're smarter than you are.
I was hunting with George one time over there, George Godwick, and I was down there and, you know, and I'm 22 years old and dumb as a post. And anyway, I'd gotten off my mule and he didn't say nothing. George was real quiet. And, he was sitting there and I went off down there and the dogs made a little lose there. And, I got down there and I was down there in front of them kind of messing around. And George says, Rick, he said, can can you see the line track? I said, no, sir, I don't see it. He said, well, it's right there someplace in front of me. He said, can you smell it? And I said, well, I just laughed. Cause George wasn't, he was just quiet.
Yeah.
He was a good guy and had some sense of humor, but he's, when he said that, can you smell the track? I just kind of laughed. I said, well, no, sir. And he said, well, then get the hell out of the way. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I never have forgotten that.
Yeah.
So when I get anxious and I think, man, I need to get down there and help them, I might hold off on that for just a little bit.
Yeah.
And if a guy will do that, things will pick back up and let them work it out.
And I remember talking to Terrell years ago and me asking him questions about, hunting lions and everything. And him repeating, instead of giving me, you got to learn how to read those dogs. You got to read those dogs. And that kind of stuck with me.
Well, Terrell and I have been friends 40 years and he's a fiver. I mean, he's a level 5 guy.
Yeah.
And, just, is as good as a lion hunter gets.
Yeah.
Good as a bear hunter.
Yeah.
He's hunted in Africa. He's always, and the king of the cowboy, he's a ranked mountain cowboy.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of guys want a cowboy or think they can cowboy, but Terrell's the real deal.
And all you got to do is look at this country he was raised in. And he gets around, runs cows in this country. He's got to be the real deal.
I gave his granddaughter and grandson some pictures of me and him. I've been giving away, throwing stuff out. And, as you get older and you don't have a lot of people interested in that stuff, and so I've been giving stuff away and looking through pictures. And so this trip I brought some pictures of me and him when we were younger, and I mean, way back in the day. And we look pretty good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And his grandson Chase, I went to the house last night to go to bed after we were down here talking a little bit. And anyway, Chase was in there and I had given him a pistol, that I'd had as a keepsake. And there were some pictures there. And so he came out of the bedroom and I said, you like a pistol? And he said, oh, yes, sir. Thank you. And he had those pictures. And I said, what do you think of that? And there was a couple of pictures of me and then me and Terrell together. And I said, that's your grandfather. And man, he was just kind of looking like, for real?
Really? What happened?
What happened? Yeah. Yeah, we look pretty good.
I'll be dang. How did you meet Terrell? What?
I think Johnny Clump told me about, excuse me. I think Johnny Clump would tell me about Terrell. I think Johnny maybe gave me his number.
Did you hunt with Johnny some too?
Oh yeah, heck yeah. Johnny and I hunted a lot together. And Johnny's a level 5. Johnny's as good as a lion hunter, maybe best lion hunter ever.
Yeah.
Real deal.
I've got to go down and hunt with him.
Yeah, he's the real deal.
Yeah. He's a lot of fun. I enjoyed my time down there with them as much as I did anywhere I've ever been. I enjoyed being around them. Yeah,
I used to go down to the ranch there and his mom had a big old stick of bologna and she said, how thick you want it? You remember those days?
Yeah.
Slice that old bologna and put a little onion on there and little mayo, real mayonnaise, not the Miracle Whip stuff.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And, we'd fix her TV. It was on a 12-volt battery, Oh, yeah. One of a kind.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. Johnny's as good a guy as you'll ever find in the real hunter. But it's,
Dos Cabeza Cattle Company is the Clumps down there.
Yeah.
And I guess
I've been all over that country with him. And,
got a whole slew of boys. Got a whole bunch of boys.
Oh, yeah.
Kids and grandkids. And
I think there's a couple of them that are probably, they all got their expertise, but I think there's a couple of them pretty good cowboys.
Yeah, they're cowboys. Yeah. Yeah, I got to hunt with one of his boys and him, and we stayed down there. Matter of fact, Benny was with us.
Oh, okay.
And we stayed down there and hunted for a few days. And that country, dadgum, there's a lot of Mexicans come across the border right there. I mean, it's terrible because you going out through there and you find backpacks and underwear and panties and stuff laying out through there, and you wonder what in the world happened here.
Yeah, we're gonna have to rein up some of this stuff that's going on in this country. Not to get political, but we're gonna have to rein up some of this stuff that's going on.
Oh, they got to do something, don't they?
Yeah.
How about down there? Now, Steve Smith told me that you've probably caught more lions than anybody else with a flashlight down on the river. Now, tell me some stories about down there.
How does Steve know that? No. Well,
You had to hunt at night.
Working for the government, it's a 300, it's a full-time deal. It's not a seasonal thing and, if you've got killing or, some lines in there and you want to hunt in July, and I never did hunt. I mean, I hunted when I was a kid growing up, hunting with that old broke ever-ready flashlight.
Yeah.
Hunting in the creek down there. I mean, I knew about hunting at night.
Yeah.
But I never had hunted lines. It wasn't legal in Arizona, number one. From what I remember, I don't think it was legal to hunt at night. So I get down there and I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? Cause I was trying to hunt and you only make it till 9 or 10 o'clock.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, well, I'll just start going at night, and it's still hot at night. I mean, at midnight, you got a gallon of water, you got to pack water and, a gallon of water is heavy.
Oh yeah.
But you go down there and even at midnight, them dogs are still, it's still warm out, but it's not like the sun just beating down on you. But it's a learning process, but if you're going to hunt in the summertime and you don't want to kill dogs,
that's what
if you're going to hunt at night, but it's not real romantic. I mean, it's dangerous. You could ride off a little place or,
And you still rode? You still took a mule or a horse?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And a lot of that country I already knew, you knew, we had, reconned it in the daytime or something and we had been in there trying to hunt in the mornings, but you can't make it far enough, to sometimes you catch the lion right away early, off, if there's some killing or something, but at night, it's, a lot of snakes and, it's just a hostile environment.
You ever been bit by a snake?
Been bit 3 times.
Rattlesnake? Just on your leg?
I got bit once on the knuckle and the finger and then twice on the leg.
You give yourself 3 cc's of dexamethasone?
Never did do nothing. never received any medical attention at all.
Swell up like?
No, they were like what I call like a semi-dry bite.
Okay.
I had some reaction. I had like an aluminum taste one time. Another time my stomach was kind of contracting, had like some seizures, but nothing. If you get a load of it, it's probably smart to go to the doctor, but
I would say,
yeah, they'll kill you. But that, and hounds get dry bites. I mean, you can tell a hound gets a dry bite or if he gets a load of it, but I was fortunate and they were all what I call.
I mean, when your hounds got bit, did you doctor them with Dex?
I would Dex and, ACE, ACE promazine or whatever it is.
Yeah, kind of.
And then so a good broad
slow their system down.
Yeah,
that would be good.
Well, the DMSO just flushes it through their system.
Yeah,
but you give them that ACE, and then you get them on a good broad spectrum antibiotic.
Yeah,
and they'll get over it. I've actually never lost a dog to a rattlesnake bite.
I've had lots bitten.
I've lost them in the heat. Mm-hmm. Once a dog gets the wobbles. And I've seen it in cow dogs too. If they go over there and lay down, they get the wobbles and go lay down in the trailer like a week later. If they don't just die right there outright, they'll, like a week later, you go out in the pen and their kidneys are hurt.
Yeah.
So it's, but I've lost them to the heat and I've lost them over a ledge, or lions bite them.
Yeah.
I lost probably the best hound I ever had, with a big tom on top of him. He bit him on top of the head and killed him right in front of me. And tried to kill a couple other dogs right in front of me, but.
Did he die a violent death?
It was pretty brutal.
I imagine.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's a lot of dogs there and you're trying to get a shot at him and, and trying to keep from shooting a dog. It's a lot of chaos, on the ground there.
What, were you out on a ledge?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just,
Have you lost quite a few dogs off of ledges?
Yeah. I've probably lost a half a dozen of them. They don't have to fall very far, Brett, to get killed. Yeah. If they fall 25 feet,
That's my worst fear.
Yeah. A man falls 25 feet, it can kill you.
Yeah. And cave holes. I don't like cave holes.
Yeah.
I personally don't like cave holes because it's that claustrophobia thing. I can't hardly get in them.
I've crawled around in them things. I've been off down in those places. It's spooky, but I'm not going to let them go.
I get where I can't hardly breathe when I get in there.
Yeah, take you a paper sack, if you hyperventilate, get you a paper sack while you're down there and start puffing in that.
Like
get your carbon monoxide back up. Just a little hint. If you're down here and you're thinking, I'm hyperventilating, get your paper sack out and sit there and calm yourself and then go kill the lion. You owe me for that one.
Next time.
I'm serious. 2 years from now, you go, hey, I paper sacked myself and went on and got the lion. You owe me.
Packing me a paper sack.
Paper sack. You know what I mean? Because this carbon monoxide is what it is. So you can't make this stuff up, dude. Just can't, Can you?
No.
You can't make it up.
So, and I imagine there's stories that you won't tell because you think nobody would ever believe me. J. Steve and Steve Smith, he likes to tell everybody I'm some kind of stand-up comedian, but I don't think that's the case. I think I'm just honest. Well, yeah, you're a karate guy too, aren't you?
I've got some high-level belts in judo and karate.
Do you? Mm-hmm. Did you compete a little bit?
Uh-huh.
Did you?
Yeah, when I was younger, used to go to tournaments and stuff. And yeah, I've been doing it my whole life. My dad started me when I was about the same thing with the hounds when I was about 8.
Yeah.
I was little. I had asthma real bad and I was kind of sickly and, just got picked on a lot because I was small, and my dad he fought in Okinawa.
Yeah.
And he lost one of his lungs in the war. And so they were all, they were from Iowa. And my dad's parents, my grandfather on my dad's side was a railroad man. But my mother's family, they had a dairy and they were miners and they farmed and so anyway, that weather up there is real cold.
Yeah.
And when he came back from Okinawa, the doctors told my mother, they shipped him stateside and took his lung. And, they told my mother they need to move him down to a drier climate because he's not going to live very long in this cold weather. So they migrated to Arizona like in 48 maybe.
Oh yeah.
So Daddy started going, remember the YMCA? Is that not the song, but the YMCA? The YMCA,
yeah.
The young men's.
Yeah.
Daddy would go down there and swim. He would swim for exercise to rehabilitate.
Yeah.
So when I was about 8, we were down there swimming and we walked by and there was a Japanese man that had come after the war and was giving judo lessons there at the Y. And Daddy said, I was sitting there watching the kids, Daddy said, you like to do that instead of swim? And I said, yes, sir. I'd like to try it. So, I stayed with that, and got, pretty high up, high level deal.
Yeah.
And then from there I went to did the karate and same thing, made Dom and, which is, is a black belt. And,
yeah.
And then there's degrees to that where you move up, but
that's cool.
Yeah. And it's not you'll never see a real high level martial artist that it's like a tough guy it goes the other direction. People learn discipline and they learn respect. Yeah. Because the reality of it is, if there's real time trouble out on the sidewalk, you could really, you could kill somebody. Yeah. So you have to be careful with that kind of stuff. So, anyway, it's beneficial. I mean, it's helped me in different situations.
I can imagine. There's been times I wish I knew a little bit of it.
Yeah. And Daddy boxed in the military and he taught me how to box. He used to drink beer and get us out there with the gloves and he just thought it was hilarious. We just wail the tar out of one another. He'd sit there and drink beer.
It was entertaining for him.
For him, Anyway.
How about, got to ask you, do you ever hunt the snow? I know it's.
I went twice. And, Marvin James was a lion hunter from he's dead now. I think his ex-wife killed him or something or other. I don't know, some kind of bad deal. But anyway, Marvin and I were friends. And I went with him one time in Flagstaff, Arizona, and my feet got cold. Here's a little thing with me. If my feet or hands get cold, I'm done. Anyway, I didn't have proper foot gear. So I'm in a pair of Red Wing boots, right? And my feet got wet in a little skiff of snow. And I told Marvin, I said, this is out. And another time I was in Prescott, Arizona, in Camp Wood over around Prescott, and my pickup slid off in the bar ditch and was stuck, and we had to get it out. We were all day long getting it out. And I thought, Nah.
That's
So I just never did do it again. And of course, being down, we don't get a lot of snow. I mean, it's just, yeah. But I don't know whether it's right or wrong, or I don't judge people, or, if that's what guys want to do.
Yeah.
But I tried it twice, and I said, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
I'm just too big a wuss, I guess, I'm telling you, if I get cold, you know what I mean? I'm done.
I understand.
But it's,
so if you, like right now, do you have any hounds left?
I don't.
So if you, in the next year, you thought, man, I want to just start hunting lions just for recreation, just because watch a dog trail.
Right.
Where would you go to get your hounds?
I would probably go to Steve. I'd probably go to Steve Smith, and I'd go there and look real sad and pathetic, and
hang out
make him give me a couple of.
You want to know something?
What?
I'd give him a good one.
There it is. That's why I would go to him, because everybody else is getting 40,000, and he knows I don't got 40,000. He's like, here, take this one.
Price it accordingly.
Yeah, priced accordingly. That's real friendship right there, buddy. Yeah, there's people down there that want me to go again, and I think I would probably be able to. I'm still in pretty good health. I've been blessed with good health.
Yeah,
I'm never sick.
Yeah.
I haven't been to the doctor in years. People say, what's your cholesterol number and all that? I said, I don't have any idea. There's 19 things wrong with me. I just don't know it.
Just don't know.
Yeah. But if you go to the doctor, I promise you they'll find something.
Well, it's their business.
Yeah.
That's here, take this pill.
But I do think about it, and I do miss it. And
do you?
I've got a dog down there now that doesn't belong to anybody. She's half Chihuahua and half healer, I think. Anyway, she came in there as a puppy, and she's 3 years old now, but she don't belong to nobody, but she lives there with me. And
she's your partner.
And she treats wild house cats around there.
Really?
No, I shouldn't tell this.
No,
this
that's
is
good.
This is embarrassing. I went from a guy that could.
You get excited when she trails a wild house cat?
I went from a guy that could catch a level 5 lion to a dog that doesn't belong to anybody, and I hear her out there yapping. And there's a bunch of mesquite covered country around there, and I'll go over there, and her name is Tootsie. She don't belong to anybody, but I named her. She's Tootsie. I said, "Well, you got Tootsie," and there's like this big ugly Tom, and
you pet her and tell her a good girl.
Yeah, I take 22 rifle over there and shoot them out, dude. And she wools them around. I go, "That girl, Tootsie, get that thing," Oh, it's embarrassing.
You can't get it out of your blood then.
Yeah, and I'm looking around thinking, "Good Lord, nobody sees me,"
Well, the whole hound dog world's going to know now.
Yeah, everybody knows. That's what I'm reduced to,
What do you think the future? What do you think the future of lion hunting is going to be? What do you?
I think it's on borrowed time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's unnecessarily on borrowed time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it doesn't need to be restricted. There's some stuff that has gone on historically that could be cleaned up and done a little bit better. But I think in a management scheme, and I'm a biologist by trade. I didn't know if I told you I'm a wildlife biologist.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not only scientific minded, I'm conservation minded.
Sure.
So, everything needs management, there's range management. You got to move cattle around, deer numbers, everything competes for the resources.
Yeah.
There's carrying capacities. Lions need management.
Yeah.
Look at California. The lions, the number one prey base in California for a lion is a lion.
Yeah.
They're cannibalistic by nature. They're cannibalistic. They'll eat one another anyway. Mm-hmm. But what they've decimated the deer, there's no deer left. So now they're hunting people and their own kind. And to me, that's a sad deal.
Yeah.
When you manipulate it to the point. So I think the game departments could take a look at that, and they, let them manage, but don't just do away with it. Like California in what was 73 or 75, they put the moratorium on them and say, hey, we're not going to hunt them anymore. And, for me personally, I think that's not smart business.
And that's what they're trying to do in Colorado right now.
Right.
And,
but I'm not, and no sane person, it's not even realistic thinking. How do I put this? It's not realistic thinking to be extirpated minded, to want to like
extirpated,
to extirpate, to make everything extinct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's not even sane thinking. And furthermore, you couldn't do it even if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But in a management scheme, that's smart business. You know, keep your lions, you know, if you got 10 lions. So in theory, you know, if the state, and there's really no way to census a lion, but if they were going to guesstimate on it, they said, we got 2,500 lions. Well, maybe put a set number aside and think about, you know, letting that amount of lions sell that many tags or whatever.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. I mean,
and that helps your deer. That helps your livestock producers. But you can't just, and the way it's going now, you know, I think they're just trying to shut it down. And the lions, let me tell you, the lions in most states it's a viable, stable population, very huntable population.
Yeah.
They don't need our help, cowboy.
Yeah.
They don't need our management. I mean, they do to some degree, but they don't need us coming in saying, hey, you know, and there's a lot of people that want to see that happen.
Well, there's so many of the uneducated
but it impacts your deer populations, your elk populations.
And that's what we're here for, is to maintain a balance. I mean, to try to maintain some kind of balance.
So that's my take on the future of that. I think that if they get it done and they just, you know, I think I think in the future, you know, it's not going to be good.
You got anything else?
Well, I'm surprised we made it this far. It's been fun. You're a super nice guy. You're very intelligent, and I've seen a little bit of your podcast. I think you do a good job.
Oh, thank you.
And can I get a healing lesson?
Let's go find us a goat and a steak and a rope, and we'll heal.
You knew I was going to get around it. You know, I didn't rope at a high level like you did, but I was about in the middle there at one time, and now I've got like a 3 card. Well, so I'm like trying to bum roping lessons off people.
Well, I'll trade you roping lessons for some lion hunting.
Okay, you got a deal on it. No, I think you're a good fella, and you know, keep doing what you're doing, and I think you got a good heart, and you care about stuff, and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I
encourage you to do it.
I like to talk to people like you that have been there and done it.
Yes, sir.
And you know, there's a lot of BS out there now, and so you know that when you're talking to somebody, you know, that's been recommended like you and Steve
you don't got to talk to, you know, you can talk to a cowboy for 30 seconds and tell whether he's been there or not. You know, guys want to talk about cowboying or lion hunting or tiddlywinks or whatever they think their expertise is, but you don't have to talk to them very long to figure out whether they've been there or not. Yep. You know, I mean, that's the truth of it.
I know.
You know,
I've been accused. I don't. I mean, well, I'll try not to say it.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Let's turn this thing off.